Is WordPress still the best platform to build websites on in 2022 going into 2023? Or is something else better? So I know that's kind of a hard question right off the bat because WordPress by itself isn't really a complete solution most of the time because a lot of it depends on what theme are you using or what page builder are you using? Are you inheriting a project that's already messed up and terrible to work with? Or do you get to start from scratch? And what are the specs of the project in the first place, right? So there's a lot of questions that kind of go into this. And I know kind of right off the bat that it's not really an apples to apples comparison, but nevertheless, there are a handful of reasons why I think WordPress is really, really awesome, and I want to go over those. There's a couple of times where I almost never use WordPress. I'll mention that as well. And then at the end, I think we'll be able to figure out, based on what your next project is going to be, if you feel like WordPress is the best fit for you. So right off the bat, there's two kind of theoretical things that I really like about WordPress in general. The first one is you have the flexibility to optimize, meaning that if you don't like the performance of your site or your host or whatever, you can just pick the site up and move it to a different web host, and now you've got better performance, right? So it could be the case that maybe you start out with a really inexpensive host, the site grows and you have some success, and then you move it over to something that's a little bit bigger and more powerful. But what if you're on Wix and you don't like the performance of your host? What are you going to do about it? You're nothing. You're stuck, right? You'd have to move off of Wix entirely into something else if you just wanted to get better performance. So that's one thing. Another one is because WordPress is open source, you can I feel like you own your own content, and that's important to me too. But that's all kind of theoretical. What about some practical things? Let me give 3 examples of times where we were able to use WordPress, but I don't think we could have achieved the same result in any other platform nearly as easily. So one of the things that I'll do, I kind of come at this from a technical perspective. I have a computer science degree, I write a lot of code, and don't really have as much of a design pedigree, right? So I do a lot of coding. And so we'll write custom plugins for things. And there's 3 examples that are coming to my mind that I don't think we could have implemented very easily, or maybe not even at all on Webflow or Squarespace or Wix or anything like that. So here's what they are. The first one is I wrote a plugin that basically creates sheet music because I play the guitar and I write a lot of songs, and sometimes I'll want to share the songs with other people in my band, and so I created this plugin where you can write out the chords and the lyrics in Chord Pro format, and then you can even transpose the song into a different key, and then there's even a button to click to download a PDF. You can even share a link with another person to a particular version of the song. If you say you transpose the song into a certain key, you can share a link to that specifically to somebody else. And now everybody can get the sheet music, and it's really, really nice. It's but I didn't have to build all of the website from scratch. I just had to focus on the sheet music part. So that's one example. Another example is I created this searchable podcast directory where I was noticing that, by default, you just kind of the podcast sort of works like a blog. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to tag the post with who's in it, what are the topics, what books are covered, things like that. And then be able to just kind of in an Ajax way, just kind of type in what you want. And as you're typing, the results filter, and then boom, you basically get what you want really fast. So I created a plugin to do that. So that was really cool. But I didn't have to build the whole website. I just had to build the searchable podcast part of it. And then I was able to use themes and stuff and page builders to really quickly build the rest of the site. So that means you can have everything that you want and then also add some custom stuff and really easily sync all that stuff together. Here's the third one though. This one's nuts, right? So the third thing that we did that was really big is we created a store, but everything in the store was free, but you had to request the items from the store manager. So it's kind of a weird workflow, right? Where's do you ever hear of a store with free stuff? But the thing was, it was a contracting, like a contractor business. And when they had projects, the people that were actually doing the contracting were on site building stuff, and they could request things like t-shirts, or they had jackets, or they had yard signs. And so the team of people that was actually going on site to do the work, they could say, hey, we've got a team of 5. Can we have 5 jackets so that we can have our branding on while we're doing the work? And then you kind of submit that request, and then the management team looks at it and says that seems reasonable, and then they send you the 5 shirts or whatever. But you couldn't say I want 10,000 jackets or I want 10,000 shirts, right? So because they'd be like, what are you doing with 10,000 of them? That's too much. And so they would have to, the request would have to be approved. And so we built out that whole workflow in a custom plugin, but we were able to do it really quickly because, first of all, we didn't have to build out the whole website. We just needed to build out that workflow. And WordPress came with user accounts and all kinds of other things to really make it easy to build the site. So we only had to focus on the custom workflow part of it, which made it really, really fast. And if you were going to do something like that, I think you would have to, if you weren't going to use WordPress, you'd probably go to something like Laravel if you were going to stick with PHP as your programming language, so that you could kind of build things up from scratch with all of that, which would have taken way longer. So I think you can get the biggest efficiency leverage by using a platform like WordPress specifically to do that. But there's a couple of times where I almost never use WordPress. Let me give you 2 examples where I almost never choose WordPress. The first one is e-commerce stores selling physical products, because I don't like working with WooCommerce very much. I feel like it's very, very heavy. I feel like in the admin side, like the order fulfillment aspect of it is clunky, and there's really nothing you can do about it because you're inside of WordPress, and it's like if you're processing a lot of orders and you have other people trying to do the order fulfillment, they're all logging into WordPress, and it can just be a mess. So what I would rather do is use Shopify. So like if I've got a client, or even myself, if I were going to sell something that was a physical product that got shipped, I would probably use Shopify for that, because they've got such a great workflow, and it's easy to like you can obviously build the website really well, but like the admin side, like the order management side of it's really nice. So like that's an example. But if I wanted to kind of like make sure that I had the ability to expand to something else later, like say maybe we start out selling physical products, but maybe eventually we want to add digital products or memberships or subscriptions or something like that, then I'd probably go back and use WordPress anyway, because WordPress gives you this platform where you can really expand to whatever you want. But in the case where I know it's just going to be physical products, like maybe I was working with a company that sold watches or something like that, I would just put it on Shopify because it's much better user experience there. So that's one example. Another example is online communities. I'm actually thinking about this right now, like for DoubleStack, is like I'm thinking about putting together like a larger scale sort of online community for web designers that want to make 6 figures working out of your house with a laptop, but you don't know how to get the leads or the clients for it. And so I thought, well, what if I put that in something like Circle? You know, like if you go to like circle.so, like that's a really nice online community, and I would rather use something like that than try to implement all of those features in WordPress itself, because basically I've actually got, you might even be part of it already, I've got these communities in Facebook, but like Circle is kind of like all the features of Facebook plus more without any of the junk that Facebook brings along with it, right? So you've got the ability to post things, and you can tag people in your community in the posts, and you can email people anything, like a weekly email with all the different posts that maybe they haven't seen yet or whatever. So there's a lot of really cool functionality, and I wouldn't ever try to rebuild all of that in WordPress itself. So like if you've got a really specific type of project, you know, like just kind of back when we were talking about what are the specs of the project, if it's like an online community, I would probably choose that, you know, rather than trying to implement all that in WordPress. But all of that is to say, generally speaking, I feel like WordPress gives you the biggest bang for the buck, because for me, it kind of all boils down to one thing, which is you can build almost anything that you want, and you only have to hand code the custom parts. And I don't know any other platform that provides that degree of flexibility and leverage on these projects, because like you can't really do that in Webflow, you can't really do that in Squarespace or Wix or Weebly or Shopify. It's like all of those other platforms are much more limiting than WordPress. And if we're going to run an agency where everybody's kind of familiar with a certain tool set, WordPress has been the best platform for us for a really long time. And I think a lot of other people agree too. I mean, that's why like over 40%, was like 43% of all websites in the world are powered by WordPress. And if you kind of whittle it down to just the CMSs, like just the content management systems, I think you're over 60%. So a lot of people, I think, agree with this. Let me know if you agree. You know, give me a thumbs up if you think this has been interesting. And just kind of comment below and let me know if you think that I'm kind of on the right track, or like if you've experienced these sorts of efficiencies, or maybe you know something that I don't know, and you can let me know what that is and see if maybe there is something better that I've just missed. So kind of put that in the notes as well. But that's kind of what I'm thinking, because like there's so many WordPress sites out there, 40% of sites are powered by it. And so it's like it's really easy to find clients, which is another thing. Like if you're going to be an agency, it's nice to be able to work with what most people are using already, so that you've got a lot of access to available clients. But what about themes? So the WordPress theme world is like, it's constantly changing. And I've been thinking a lot about WordPress themes too. And I've come to this like mind-blowing conclusion that has been really shocking for me. And I put a whole video up about it. So like, check out this next video. Let me know what you think about what the best WordPress theme is, and see if you think I'm off my rocker with my conclusion. So check that out. I'll see you in a minute.